Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Family Show, Season 2, Episode 30. And today with me, I have Robert Andrew Wagner of the Little Wretches. And you've been playing music for years. What originally stirred your passion in playing music? And was there somebody along the way that said, hey, you can actually do pretty good and kind of give you the encouragement to realize you could go a little farther
Oh
with
my.
your
Oh
music
my.
career?
The can of worms that you just opened. The first, just let me say that I had some cousins that were a little bit older than me, and whatever they liked, I liked 150%. So my older cousin, who was 18 months older than me, he liked the Beatles.
Mm,
So I loved the Beatles. And he said the Beatles were the best group because they wrote their own songs. So that's it. We got to write
right.
our own songs. So from the time I was a preschooler, we would get our parents' records and look at the addresses because we asked our parents, what do you do if you want to be like the Beatles? So, well, you got to get a record contract. Well, how do you do that? You have to write them a letter. So we would copy the addresses off their record labels and write letters as children to the record company to ask for a recording contract. And
Wow.
at a certain point when I was growing up, I had like the ideal existence up until maybe I was 14 or 15. And then everything in my family got really bad. And I just remember the day thinking to myself, when was the last time I was happy? The last time I was happy is when I was immersed in music. So, you go back, you trace your steps back. And, so that was it. And, my ninth birthday present was a guitar lesson and an acoustic guitar. And I remember one time my mom popping in on my teacher and saying, well, do you think he has any talent? And my music teacher said, well, he has a good sense of rhythm, and that's something that you can't teach. Really, talent doesn't have anything to do with it.
Mm,
It's, as they say, 90% effort, 10%, 90% perspiration, 10% inspiration. So I just figure I'm strong on the inspiration and perspiration department both. So how can I lose?
yeah, yeah. Papa Drew's RV wishes he could play, and I wish I could play as well as I'd like to. I can't play as well as I'd like to on guitar. Um, is there somebody that you look to when you first started playing that was a good teacher to you that you remember?
Well, you know, in those teenage years, like when I was in high school, I just did not have the social skills to hang out with the kids that played in bands and stuff. So I just kind of resigned myself to, I'm going to have to be a writer, because I'll never be able to play in a band. I can't play well enough. I can't sing well enough. And I don't get along with people well enough. Uh, Lucky for me, punk rock happened,
Mm,
and punk rock made it possible for people. Once again, I mean, because early rock and roll, you knew three chords and you had some guts, you could
right.
go for it. And punk rock made that happen too. You didn't have to have a whole lot of skill. You just had to have a whole lot of drive. Uh, make the most of what you have. So it's not so much that it inspired me as much as it made it possible. And I could say, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And then a guy that I get a lot of comparisons to, a guy named Lou Reed, who, when I heard him sing, people say, so, well, if that guy can do it, then I can do it. So,
Right.
but that's not necessarily a positive thing. It's more like license. Those guys gave me license to believe that I could get out on a stage and uh, hold an audience's attention,
Right. Right. And Papa Drew wants to know if you were in the Navy. I think he's referring to the hat you
Well,
were in.
no stolen valor here. When I was a kid, I was a big fan of Popeye the Sailor Man, and what was Popeye's slogan? I am what I am.
Yeah.
And I wish I was better looking. I wish I had more hair. There's a lot of things I wish I played guitar, more with more elegance and flair, but I am what I am. So that's the significance of this hat.
And read over um, the thing thing that I
Breaking
got
up a little
saying
bit here, audio wise.
when you're talking about being a kid, you grew up you grew up when you were near Andy Warhol, which that was kind of interesting to find out.
Well, it's kind of multi-generational. As a matter of fact, right here, unfortunately, my Andy Warhol Frisbee broke just last night. My
Oh man,
Summer of Andy souvenir Frisbee. But my dad was the same age, born the same year as Andy Warhol, and grew up in the same neighborhood as the Warhol family. And I remember one time as a kid being at like the Thanksgiving table, and my uncle and my dad exchanged a joke about the Warholers. And I'm thinking, the Warholers? Are they talking about the Warhol like Andy Warhol? And then when Andy Warhol died, he's buried right across the trolley tracks from where I grew up. And we saw this fleet of limousines coming down the road, like more limousines than you would see if a head of state passed away. And we said to ourselves, who could that be? There's this just little ethnic cemetery. Said, that's got to be Andy Warhol. So we walked over after, all the, official visitors were gone, and people had left Campbell soup cans and paintbrushes and stuff like that. The stone hadn't been placed yet, but now that's sort of a little an insider tourist attraction for people in Castle Shannon and Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. It's like, oh, let's go over and see Andy's grave.
right. Yeah, that's
and I know that for art lovers, the people have a sense that Andy Warhol was a charlatan, but if you get a chance to visit the Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh, you can see that he's like Picasso. He could have drawn anything. He was just a talent and a visionary. And yeah, there's a lot of humor and a little bit, a lot of mischief in his work, but he could have done anything. It's not like, oh, anybody could do that. Nah, maybe anybody could do it, but he could have done anything. He chose to do that.
right. And you've chosen to do music, and I read that you also survived cancer. So is that something that you put into some of the songs you've written? Your experience with that, and that kind of changed your outlook on life after experiencing that?
Well, I could have talked about this when you asked me about what got me into music, because I said I just kind of had resigned myself to being a writer, and punk rock had happened. But what I left out was I got cancer when I was in college. At the time, I just got lucky. The doctors that I went to, I just went to the emergency room, and the doctors that I lucked into were young guys that were on the cutting edge of research. And they told me, we have this new thing going. We have to get permission to try it, but it's over 90% successful. But outside of that small community who knew about this chemotherapy regimen, what I had probably would have been fatal. And, counselors were going to my friends saying, get ready, your boy's going to be gone. Get some books on grief counseling, because you're going to have to deal with some grief.
Wow.
So another wild stroke of fate, my roommate that I was sharing an apartment with, when we became roommates, we became friends. I didn't know that he was a musician. We just had similar interests as far as politics and history, that type of thing. And it turned out he was the most talented musician I ever knew. I mean, so we were sitting in a bar one night, coming to grips with, wow, I might not live. And all I ever wanted to do was play in a band. And I looked at him and said, we need to start a band. And he said, yes, we do. And that's really, the guy's name was John Creighton. And just a convergence of circumstances. Him, that if I don't do it now, I might not get to do it. And it had a profound impact on other things too, because from that point forward, I say I'm a Wagner. I can never be wrong, and I can never quit. So when I'm wrong, it can get ugly, but I just kind of made this little vow. I will never in my life do anything that I don't believe in. I will never, You ever heard of peer pressure? It's not going to affect me,
Right.
So
Right.
that's I think I might have veered from what your original question was, but yeah, I had
That's all
cancer.
right.
And I've been cancer free for a long time, and it was just one of those things that I could use that as like a manipulative tool. I could manipulate people's pity. Oh, the poor guy, he's had a hard time. But I just kind of knew deep down inside that I was going to make it. My doctors gave me a strong indication that I was going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
But I must say that I had a lot of anger about it, like afterwards. Like while I was battling it, I was able to keep a positive attitude. But once I'd gotten that clean bill of health, I was angry at the world, and that anger, really fueled me. So yeah, so I have a few songs that make reference to it, but they're hardcore, and I really have to choose my spots about when I play them because,
Right.
Like this is a weird thing. I'm a teacher. I'm a good teacher. It just comes naturally to me, and because I'm comfortable with kids, regardless of their needs. I'm just good at seeing what people need and dealing with that. But for a lot of outsider type people, outsider communities, which I would consider myself a part of, the things that made us who we are, where it's not polite to talk about, right? So we can only talk about them with other people who have those shared experiences. So 99% of the time, it's almost like we're walking around in disguise. We can't show who we really are. We have to pretend. We have to pretend to be like everybody else, but in our hearts, we're really not. And so I have to be careful. You don't want to have a song that makes people have a knee-jerk negative reaction, so they turn off. They just stop listening. It freaks them out. But at the same time, I know that there are people out there who need to, that when they hear this song, they will say, I'm not alone. He knows what I'm going through. And if he knows what I'm going through, at least one other person, that feeling that I'm not. So it's a real, very fine line you have to walk. So I'm trying to reach people, but I'm trying to not freak out people as well.
Right. Right.
So,
Really.
what I found, you could set up anything, put in the proper frame or the proper context, the audience can handle it. But if you hit them over the head with the sledgehammer when they're not ready for it, they might resent you for it.
Right. Yeah. So largely depends on your audience. Somewhere you can break those ones out for sure. That you don't want to be playing where it's some happy festival and you're talking about one of the hardcore songs or vice versa. Maybe you're there with a bunch of survivors and they'd like to hear some songs like that about getting through it.
Yeah. The first like press notoriety that ever got back in my hometown of Pittsburgh, somebody. I mean, I knew I had something that other people didn't have, and that when people started to notice it, they'd say, "Ooh, there's something going on there." But the headline was the club that we played at regularly in Pittsburgh was called the Electric Banana, which if you've ever seen the movie Spinal Tap, the inside joke is that Spinal Tap was discovered at a club called the Electric Banana because Lenny and Squiggy, the guys who played in Spinal Tap, they went to Carnegie Mellon. Right. And the Electric Banana was right off, like not too within walking distance of CMU. But the article was titled "Bludgeoned at the Banana." And of course, most of our fans thought, oh, that's a good thing. Man, it's hard hitting. Like, yeah, some people like hard hitting music. For some people, that's, ooh, I don't want to go get bludgeoned. And
right.
but I've always had that. I mean, I take it for granted. It's, so I live through this stuff. It's nothing to me. But for some people, it's, it's dark,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely understand. Sharing my story, and it's hard for some people to hear my story. And I share it just so that people can, find hope and realize it doesn't have to be the end of the road. You can keep going and following your dream and not let a bump in the road be the end of the story. And I kind of want to know some of the stories. You wrote me before about playing some songs, so I'd love to hear your songs and then the story behind them. So, do you want to kind of tell me the story behind the first one that you really like playing? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, since you invited me, I asked for the invitation. Let's face it. I would prefer to play. That's what I do. But picking the three, because the fact is I'm promoting an album called Undesirables and Anarchists. Right. But it's really a rockin' album. But the songs that I really want to play, I want to play a song about my little brother. When I mentioned that when I was growing up in my childhood, up till about middle school, as far as I knew, my mother was the most beautiful woman in the world, and my father was like Superman. He was the strongest man in the world, and everything was perfect. We were completely provided for, and we could just enjoy being kids. But by the time my brother was born, I was oblivious to it, but my brother was born, my parents' marriage had already begun to disintegrate. And, I wanted a little brother, but then when he was old enough to want to play with me, I didn't want to be bothered with him. I was always trying to ditch him. He was the youngest kid in the neighborhood, always trying to keep up with everybody and really precocious. He was able to do things way before the average kid could do them. Not afraid of anything, just love to have fun. And one of my most vivid memories is when it was his 9th birthday and we were sitting around the dinner table. And I think it was me who looked up and said, "It's Chucky's birthday." And everybody in the family had forgotten. Wow. And then it was like, okay, maybe he doesn't know that we forgot. So we need to sneak out to the store, get some cake and some ice cream, get him a gift. But that's, So if you don't mind, this song is called Tiger Pajamas. And the rest of the song will speak for itself.
Awesome.
He was just a child in tiger pajamas, complete with the tiger's tail, hiding in the closet when his dad came home from work. There's a tiger in there. Oh no, someone save me from that tiger. Don't worry, Dad. It's just me, your little boy. Never was a child so in need of being loved. How much love is enough? Oh God, why did you do that to my brother? Oh God, why did you do that to him? Oh God, why did you do that to my brother? I thought you said you loved him. I thought you loved him. I thought you said you did. When he was 9 years old and his birthday came, even mother and father forgot. We ran out to the store to buy a baseball glove, as though the fairy boy would start to like sports. Some cake and some ice cream, the kid never knew. They said he was a spoiled kid, but the forgotten kid, the kid who grew up on his own. He was the kid with chipped teeth and a couple of scars, always crashing into something, always going too hard. He was the kid, he was the lonely boy child. How you gonna hate you, kids so reckless and wild? You like to smoke, like to drink. He could drink even the bike and
in the soggy, drunken, smelly redneck bars. People used to say he showed them his poetry. People used to say he played them his song. I know he could sing, but they never showed nothing to me. Too precious, too private, too strong. That's the problem with fairies, always hiding themselves, afraid they might find out the truth. He was my brother, his enemies were my enemies, but we pretended nobody knew. Never was a child so in need of big love, but how much love is enough? Oh God, why'd you do that to my brother? Oh God, why'd you do that to him? Oh God, why'd you do that to my brother? I thought you said you loved him. I thought you loved him. I thought you said you did. Oh God, why'd you do that to my brother? His enemies were my enemies. So how am I supposed to avenge what you did to my brother?
Nice job, man. Nice job.
Tiger
Into it.
Pajamas. That's still unreleased. There are versions of it floating around on YouTube, but it hasn't been like officially Little Wretched up yet.
Right, right. And it's kind of interesting. How did you guys come up with that name, by the way, little wretches?
Well, the actual name came. There was a film series at Carnegie Museums of Pittsburgh, and I guess they had a series that they were playing the movie The 400 Blows, directed by Francois Truffaut, and it's a movie about a troubled youth. And there's a scene, was subtitled, and there's a scene where some kids got into some mischief. I think they did some shoplifting or something, or I'm not sure exactly what the context was. But they cross paths with somebody, and the guy turns around and yells, "Come back, you little wretches! Come back, you little wretches!" And I just turned, my brother and other people that were involved with the band were with me, and I said, "That's the name of our band." What? The Little Wretches. And then, that resonates with us because, the old hymn, Amazing Grace, right. Save a wretch like me. I mean, there's the Beatitudes from the Bible. So it connects with me on an emotional level as well,
Right. Right. It's just really interesting how like a little thing like that, a little scene in a movie or whatever can just, it changes things and can send you off.
Yeah. And I have I downloaded the movie. I purchased the movie so I could watch it at will, but I have not watched it since I've had it, on my computer for like 2 years, and I've yet to been able. And so it's such an emotional thing for me. I can't get myself to watch it, because it'll bring back such a tidal wave of memories. Because my brother, who I wrote that song about, he was, co-founder of the Little Wretches. It was me on my guitar, him on his violin, and we built it from there. So tough.
Yeah. It that would be tough to go back to, and that's one of the things that I noticed. Like music, you can listen to it; it can take you back to different moments in your life. Like just certain songs can take you back, and is that one of the things that you've enjoyed, like in films? Is certain soundtracks that have been in different films? Like I always enjoyed like the John Hughes movies, the songs that he picked in there, because they would always kind of stick with you.
Yeah. Oh my! Well, I have a pretty extensive music collection, but geez, the soundtrack to the movie Colors, which kind of brought hip hop music into the into the mainstream. I love that. Or if we're talking about hip hop, the soundtrack to the movie Hustle and Flow. There's some songs in there that, I might be the only person in my group who like, this is great stuff. I mean, these guys are masters of rhythm and timing and the color of language. but a lot of people can't handle that. And, or, you know, when it comes to pop music or rock music, the Easy Rider soundtrack. The Easy Rider soundtrack is like the primer for, you know, rock and roll freedom music, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. What is the second song about? First song about your brother.
Okay. Well, okay. Now I'm gonna go into. I'm sticking with this folky storytelling mode. You know, and if any of my friends are out there listening, so, oh no, he's gonna tell the grandmother story again. But my grandmother was born in what is now the Slovak Republic, and just a little farming village. And you know, most of the kids in her village weren't all that interested in education. They were going to grow up to be farmers. And she loved school and, you know, believed that education is your stairway to greater things in life. She came to the United States believing that she was being sent to go to college. And it turned out that she was sent as part of an arranged marriage. And so she's met at the train station by her husband, who basically tells her, look, you don't have to marry me, but you could do worse. You don't speak the language. You don't have any money. You can't even afford to go home. So, you know, she married him, had 3 kids, but never really loved him, you know, the way that a husband and wife should be in love. And but she really was the smartest person I ever knew. I mean, she could have been an engineer. She could have been a philosopher. And my first job, as you know, as a worker, she got me a job working with her in a basement tailor shop in downtown Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And what they would do is the owner of the shop bought defective merchandise and then fixed it and tailored it to fit. So down in the sub basement, there's people from Greece, Hungary, Italy, all Venezuela, and you know, and Americans too. And most of them, you know, English was not their native language. They would go home, watch public TV, and then come to work the next day. And as they worked, argue about what they saw. You know, they could barely. They would find this little pidgin English conversation, and I got to be a part of that. And then, you know, my grandmother, she was like the general. That's what some of the guys would, you know, the old guys say, your grandmother, general, you know. Okay, I know exactly what you mean. She runs the show. Right. But when she retired, when they basically forced her to retire, she used to get up, get on the bus, go into town, into downtown Pittsburgh, and basically sit in church until it was time to go home. Like she kept that routine of getting up and going out. And really kind of sad. So this song is called Duquesne. She lived in a town called Duquesne, Pennsylvania, which was one of the great steel towns that when the steel industry went away became severely impoverished. So this is Duquesne, and well, I'll let it speak for itself. She's out the door before the dawn. She walks 6 blocks for breakfast. She don't like to eat alone. God bless the waitress, leave a 50-cent tip. The small talk ends with hello. She grabs her purse, her scarf, and a coat, and joins the crowd at the bus for the morning commute. It's a 40-minute ride to the place downtown. That's where she used to work for 20 years. It's a Wendy's now. He used to sell men's suits, a tailor shop downstairs. Best friend she ever had worked with her down there. Morella, Maria, Hungarian Mary, speaking Portuguese, Greek, Slovak, and Italian. I wonder where they are now. They weren't young like me. And I'm 78. They might not even be alive anymore. Up one block and over two, there's the church where I like to sit. I never learned to read English, but I open the Bible. It's like holding the hand of a friend. I could stay at home, sure, but I'd go out of my mind. In all these long years, I never wasted my time. The candles, the shadows, the echoes of prayers. There's a service at noon, and then where? Say hello to Father Frank and catch the bus home. Turn on the radio and wait by the phone. There's pictures of grandchildren taped to the wall. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? Well, maybe my Patsy will call. In Duquesne, you can't afford to retire. In Duquesne, you work till your time has expired. We came halfway around the world to be here. For this? For what? Somebody's bright idea. Nobody really believed it would be paved with gold. Guess there's no place on earth that it's good to be old like me. Just wait. You'll see. Just wait. You'll see. Up one block and over two, there's what's left of the 5 and 10 store. In its heyday, it used to have a little lunch counter, but only served breakfast, of course. It's a pharmacy now, and a nice man makes sure that you take the right pills. And that's important, you know, because sometimes these old people like me forget. These Americans, let me tell you. And I'm one of them, you understand. They live in homes they didn't build, eating food they didn't grow, traveling roads they didn't clear, work for bosses they don't know. Somebody picks up your garbage, get your water through pipes, get your power through cables like a God-given right. These Americans, let me tell you. And I'm one of them, you understand. They want to kill you if you try to tell them that this isn't really God's plan. In Duquesne, you can't afford to retire. In Duquesne, you work till your time has expired. We came halfway around the world to be here. For this? For what? Somebody's bright idea. Nobody really believed it would be paved with gold. Guess there's no place on earth that it's good to be old. Old like me. Just wait. You'll see. Just wait. You'll see. You'll see.
Yeah, you'll all see. I have to agree with that, man. I was going back in my mind when you're singing that to like my grandparents' house, and it wasn't up on a wall, but they had, you know, those old console TVs. Well, they had one of the ones that was like 12 feet long and had the record player and all of that stuff in with it. And across the top, they had all the grandkids' pictures in there. And then when you were talking about, you know, that's where she used to work, but it's a Wendy's now. And I remember when I was a little kid, I'm like, you know, when I hear people talk about, well, that used to be that used to be that, and I used to think nothing of it. And now that I'm older, I'm like, now I'm like, well, that used to be this and this. I'm like, oh my goodness. Kind of funny how time marches on like that.
Well, yeah, they say. Like, have you ever been to Pittsburgh?
I went by there. I haven't went in there. When I was driving the truck, I went by there, but I never stopped in there yet.
Well, like when I was growing up, Pittsburgh, you know, the Steel City, the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? But
Right.
now, and you know, for 20 years they had this big thing, pride in Pittsburgh. But the truth is, they're ashamed of Pittsburgh. And now, if you're a native, you're like deer, you know, in the backyard. Ooh, look, there's some natives. Ooh, how quaint. You know, and everybody's from Brooklyn or Seattle or something. You know, it's all people
Right.
from all around. It's really an international city. But they say you can't ask a native Pittsburgher for directions because they'll tell you, oh, you make a turn where the Eaton Park used to be. Like, well, how am I supposed to know where the Eaton Park used to be? I'm not from around here. But, well, if you're not from around here, then we'll find out the hard way.
Right. And Captain Jack Scrapper really liked that one that you just played, and I did too. It was your song seemed to be really easy to follow story wise. Is that something you kind of learned from your grandparents?
Oh my!
Like that,
thank you for asking that. Yeah, I'll tell you how when I was a kid, you know, on holidays we would always have like little family reunions. And sometimes 2 or 3. You'd gather at one grandparent's house and then go to the other branch of the family and gather at that grandparent's house. And my favorite thing on holidays, you know, all the old people would sit around, and I love their accents, right? Because none of them were born in the States. They all had accents, and I loved to listen to the way they talked. Mm-hmm. And I would just listen to their stories and they didn't know I was listening, but I would just soak it all in, you know, and it almost felt like, you know, it's my job to remember this so that I can tell the next generation. Of course, I don't remember most of it, right. But I just like that thing that, you know, we pass along our stories from generation to generation.
Yeah. And I always used to enjoy that when I was a kid, like family reunion, just sitting around listening, because I had a really, vivid imagination. So when people were telling stories, I could actually picture, you know, I could make a motion picture in my mind of what was going on, basically. And so it was always interesting. And so when you have people that write songs like you and tell those stories, it's always fun for me. And have you done any music videos yet?
Not really. One of the cornerstone songs in like the lore of the Little Wretches, for people who've been following us for a long time. Although, I mean, the whole thing I'm trying to do is build a new audience, because, you know, our old audience is feeble, you know. But I have a song called Born with a Gift. And there was a kid for his senior film project at the University of Pittsburgh, or whatever film program he was in. He was looking for a song to make a video about. And if you find the original video of Born, it's on YouTube. Several different people have posted it. He went with he did the whole thing, the storyline. All we had to do is agree to make some macaroni salad for the crew and cast, and show up at the University of Pittsburgh gym to like lip sync the song a few times. And one of the people in our band had gone to college on a basketball scholarship. So she was so the storyline was, there's a girl who's like a basketball star, but she's also addicted to pills on the side. Wow. And so there goes back and forth between her falling asleep in the classroom and pills falling on the floor, and you know, and all the ball, every time the ball goes through the hoop, that's Ellen Hildebrand really made the shot, because she's a real basketball player. She coaches basketball now. So Born with a Gift, but that's the only official video. Everything else is just a video with the song title on it, or, you know, like a slideshow.
Right.
And I'm also a friend of mine named Keith Golby, who's a teacher. He teaches media for a high school in Ellsworth City, out in Western Pennsylvania. They took Born with a Gift. They saw the original video, and they remade it in their own way. It's sort of like an anti-drug video for a contest. And so I'm real tickled by that.
That's really cool.
Born with a Gift by the Little Wretches.
I for sure will. Is it kind of interesting to you to see their visual representation of your work?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they were highly influenced by the original video, and the original video. I'm not sure. Somebody else's vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's because to me it's a different story. To me, remember the guy I told you about before, my roommate John Creighton, the really talented musician. He died suddenly. I mean, the weird thing about the Little Wretches, don't play in a band with me because mortality rate is really high if you're a member of the
I
Little
guess
Wretches.
I guess so.
Yeah. But John Creighton passed away. He had a, a deformed heart valve that if he was born today, that would be detected, when he's an infant, or maybe even detected prenatally, and they would fix it. But, he was in his early 30s when, had some silly day job, the type of day jobs that musicians get. He went home for lunch, and had anybody been there, he'd have been saved. They could have saved his life. But nobody was there, and so he died. And my response was, oh, no, no, I lost my friend. I was mad at him because he was so phenomenally talented. He should have been like, the Elvis or the Iggy Pop of his generation or something. And he didn't last long enough, so this, in fact, you told me three. I just talked myself into playing Born with a Gift as my last song, even though it's not on the new album and it's not one of the songs that I'm promoting, but got to play it now.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Want to hear it?
yeah, I'd love to hear it. And Captain Jack Strapper mentioned about your mouth organ there. I was going to say that's a pretty unique harmonica that I've seen.
Well, I have mixed feelings about the whole folk music thing, because obviously I'm a folk musician, right? I tell stories, and I tell stories through song. So that makes me a folk musician. But I do remember in one of the early versions of the Little Wretches, people trying to classify us. What kind of music do you play? And, a little indie label, Get Hip Records in Pittsburgh, the sort of the signature label for the band, the Cynics. They were like, well, you got to call yourself folk rock. You got to have a label. People have to know what box to put you in. You guys got to call yourself folk rock. And our drummer was like, I ain't playing no Peter, Paul, and Mary. And it's like, no, we're a rock and roll band. We're a literate rock and roll band. We are not folk. But at a certain point, it kind of became obvious to me that it's hard to sustain a band. Well, once you get to a certain age, you have to be able to feed your kids and maybe have health insurance and have a nice car. And you just don't make that kind of money as an indie band. So, okay, I'm going to have to learn how to play by myself. And I'm not that fluent of a guitar player. I mean, there are guys that sound like three guitars at once when they play.
Yeah.
But that's not how I learned, and I didn't prepare for that. So one way you can add some texture to the sound is with the harmonica rack, and
right.
Of course, all of us, we look to Bob Dylan as the guy with the harmonica and the acoustic guitar. So I remember, thinking, okay, I'm going to have to learn how to do this, calling all the music stores within 10 miles, who has a harmonica rack. It was in a neighborhood called Carrick. Ran up to Carrick Music, got my harmonica rack, and these harmonicas are expensive now. I mean, you might pay $60 or $70, and they don't last forever. It's not like this guitar is guaranteed for as long as I own it. Martin will fix it for free, and they guarantee that the more you play it, the better it will sound. But these harmonicas, they're expensive and they wear out. So that's life.
Oh yeah.
But now, I'm going to play a little bit of the harmonica on Born with a Gift.
Awesome. Well, I'll let you get to it.
Okay. You were born with a vision, but you read it all wrong. And you were born with a gift, but you misused it. You were born to fly with wings you could never unfold. And you spent half your life trying to pawn your heart of gold. You spent half your life trying to pawn your heart of gold. And you were born with an instinct for recognizing the truth. You saw everything for what it was, but still confused it. You were a queen among common folk and a saint among queens. You were blessed with a vision, but you never figured out what it means. You were blessed with a vision, but you never figured out what it means. You couldn't find a lover who could teach you how to really make love. So you tried to find somebody instead with the proper ideals. And everybody tried to confuse you, to seduce you. But you were too innocent, or were you just acting dumb? You were too innocent, or were you just acting dumb? Well, everything you ever learned, you killed with your prescriptions for drugs. And you were coddled by friends who pretended that they didn't know better. And the song you were trying to sing lost something in the translation. Everybody seemed to enjoy watching your frustration. Everybody seemed to enjoy watching your frustration. You were born with a gift you were afraid you had not deserved. And you were blessed with a vision and you thought it was a calling to serve. You spent half your life trying to pawn your heart of gold. You were blessed with a vision too beautiful to behold. You were blessed with a vision too beautiful to behold.
That was great, man. And Captain Jack said the passion is evident and obvious here, and I have to agree. Does it ever kind of shock you where your songs come from? Like sometimes you're just walking around and you'll just have a melody come in your head out of nowhere.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that song, I can remember. I had a part-time job. You know, musicians always have part-time jobs, and I was driving a wheelchair van for kids in wheelchairs, picking them up, crack of dawn, taking them to Easter Seal school or whatever special school they went to, dropping them off, and then having the rest of the day free. And I was driving through a section outside of Pittsburgh called South Park, and I remember seeing a hawk, with like a squirrel land in a tree, and I'm watching this hawk eat the squirrel, and the line comes, something about wings that can never unfold. You know, I was thinking about, oh man, my friend John, he was the bird. You know, he was the great glorious bald eagle that couldn't take flight, you know, and that line came to me, and then the rest of the song just came from that, you know, and it's one of those moments I'll never forget. And sometimes they just, you know, they just come to you, you know, and for me, walking, if I walk, you know, that rhythm of walking will get something going on. And another source of inspiration will be, it's tough for me, listening to other people's songs. Like, because if I go out to hear another performer, which is part of the job, right? You have to support your fellow artists. But if I go out and I like somebody, I want to go home and practice.
Yeah.
And if I go out and I don't like somebody, I'm thinking, what are they doing up there? I should be up there. And then I want to go home and practice. And a lot of times I will get an idea. It's almost like a conversation. I'll hear a song from somebody else, and you know, the response, the dialogue starts in my head and then turns into a song of its own.
Right. And you don't want to be too much influenced by those other songs either, and have it sound too much like that song either. That's probably another hard part of it as well.
Well, I mean, for me, I'm limited. You know how negatives turn into positives. When I was young, you know, I mentioned that I sometimes was afraid to ask questions, right? Because knowledge is power. And if you lack knowledge, that means you lack power. And there's nothing more unnatural for a human than powerlessness. So when I should have been asking questions, I was thinking, I need to figure out how to do that. So like a lot of kids, you don't understand that the music you're listening to is not one guitar player. It's 3 different guitar parts being overdubbed. Well, how do I play it all at once? And how do they do that? So I kind of developed my own little style. And who knows, if I was good enough to have played in a cover band, if I was good enough to play like Jimi Hendrix or Jimmy Page, who knows, I might have got sidetracked and, you know, be playing in weddings 5 nights a week, making a boatload of money, but not doing this, you know. So working like the 3 little pigs, you know, when I had straw, I built my house with straw. When I had sticks, I built my house with sticks, you know, and as times you know, I've gotten a little bit better, and I know how to work with what I can do. But you know, you much of what I do is built around my limitations. And likewise with writing melodies for songs, you know, I have a very limited vocal range. But if like a female vocalist, like there's a song on the new album called Running, and the woman who sings it asked me to write a song for her. It's like, okay, well, I'm not writing for my voice. I don't have to be limited by these 5 notes that I can hit. You know, like our tools limit our imagination. And if you could free yourself and think of, you know, the problem is getting the person to execute it, you know, write this song with a melody that I can't sing, then who is going to sing it?
Right. And how do you get that across? It's probably a large part of it. And so probably when you started playing music, you didn't realize how much communication was going to be the biggest part of playing music, more than the playing music itself.
Well, okay. Can I reference a couple of artists? You know, because when I was trying to figure out, like, when I was playing, you know, the Little Wretches had many peaks where it looked like we're going to be, you know, when we started, even, you know, with the punk people, you know, as much as they would be, we're against the music business and we're independent artists, they all wanted to be signed by major labels, and many of them did. You know, the ones that are like the Talking Heads, obviously they were signed by a major label and they had the talent to warrant that. But, you know, that was really the dream, is we're going to start as independent artists, but we're going to be signed to a major label. And we got, you know, we had our chances on several occasions, but, you know, just the fate of the band was, every time we were on the precipice of a good thing happening, somebody in the band would have some kind of catastrophic or life-changing event that would make it impossible for us to go on tour or something like that. And when it became obvious that I'd have to play by myself, it's like, how do I do that? You know, and the artists that I saw live and in person, I said, okay, that's my model. a woman named Michelle Schacht could go out there. I mean, now she has this phenomenal voice, and she amps it up a little bit, but she's a great solo performer. And the guy, I don't know if you ever heard of him, Peter Himmelman. Peter Himmelman, he's actually Bob Dylan's nephew, or he married Bob Dylan's niece or something. So he's another guy that performing solo, he can frame the songs in such a way that he can deliver a really heavy or powerful message without freaking people out. So there's a lot. So Michelle Schacht has all these songs that you hear the song and it sounds kind of light. And when she sets it up, the power, it's like, oh, I didn't realize the song was about that. Oh, Cotton Eye Joe was about an abortionist. Ooh, who would have thought that? And then Peter Himmelman's the other way. His songs can be really heavy and ponderous, so he sets them up with humor. And, so watching them, and then another guy, have you ever heard of Jonathan Richman?
I don't think so.
Jonathan Richman, he could pass as a children's artist. Like, you could look up his videos on like David Letterman show or Conan O'Brien show. He's a little bit like Alfalfa, and he's going to be slightly off pitch, but he puts this thing across that is like magic, just a magical performer. And a lot of improv. He'll do a lot of improv. Like the first time I saw him live, his opening song, he improvised this thing about trying to make something exciting happen. We're here. I don't know you, you don't know me, but we're going to try to make something exciting happen. And so, as I'd have to say, Jonathan Richman, Michelle Schacht, and Peter Himmelman, they were like, okay, that gives me a sketch. I can work with that. I can figure out how to do what they're doing. I'll never sing better than I sing. I'll never play better than I play. I can work at it, but I can put things in the right context so that it gets across.
Right, and that's really important. And we have time for one more if you want to play the other ones.
Oh my! Okay. This is another one. It leans towards the. It could be emotionally heavy, or it could be emotionally joyous, depending on your point of view. It's a song called "Cherry Trees," and my friend, like one of my best friends, his mother was a crossing guard. So she knew all the kids in the neighborhood, because when you went to school, she was the one who got you across the street at the red light. And she developed pancreatic cancer. That's now I think you can survive pancreatic cancer, or at least you can live with it for a long time. But when she got it, okay, you're not going to live too long. So without telling anybody that she was doing this, she got on the phone and she basically called all of her children's friends, basically to thank them for being good friends to her children. And I didn't realize until after she passed away, that she just called me last week. Oh, that was her goodbye call. That she was, so this is each verse is a little bit different, but it's that idea of when you go home, you go back to your old neighborhood, and it's never the same. People that you used to know, some of them might not be around anymore. Your friend's mother that used to get you popsicles in the summertime, she might not be around anymore. The dog that you used to throw the stick for, he might not be around anymore. So here we go, Cherry Trees. Those cherry trees, what happened? Why'd you cut them down? I love those trees. Carpenter ants? When those cherries ripened, most were eaten by the birds. There was a day or two in June you had a chance. They were sour cherries, couldn't bake them in a pie. We found that out the hard way the one summer that we tried. Used a whole bag of sugar just to make the filling sweet. Those aren't pies, they're tarts. Still good enough to eat.
You cut them down, I guess you had to. The remaining trunks that look like hollow tubes. Well, Ranger Danger had to be put down. How old was he in dog years? 7 to our 1. Well, do the math yourself. That means he was 105. 15 years for dogs, that isn't young. I see you saved his leash and collar. I bet you that was hard. Remember when he learned to jump the fence around your yard? I would have come, you know. You should have called at least. He knew it when the time had come. He did go out in peace. You put him down, I guess you had to. I wish to God there's something more to do. Everything else is good, I guess. Everything else is fine. I'm glad I didn't miss you like I did the other time. With a handshake and a kiss and the promise of a prayer. I'm coming back 4th of July. I'll see you if you're there. I'm coming back 4th of July. I'll see you if you're there. I didn't know your mom was sick. Well, look at her now. She's got a lot of fight. She takes better care of herself than either one of us. When she tell you something wasn't right, no one's gonna say it, but it's weighing on our minds. Things aren't gonna be like this next year at this time. This time when we pose for photos, nobody complains. Everyone pull close so we all fit in the frame. Which side's my good side? Everybody say cheese. Remember to get duplicates of these. Everything else is good, I guess. Everything else is fine. I'm glad I didn't miss you like I did the other time. With a handshake and a kiss and the promise of a prayer. I'm coming back for Christmas. I'll see you if you're there. I'm coming back for Christmas. I'll see you if you're there. I'll see you if you're there.
Man, that's about how you have to look at it after looking at my life, man. Yeah, I'll see you if you're there for sure, because you never know. Christmas to Christmas, especially as you age. Who's not going to be there for sure. And all the music and everything you heard, you can go to littlewretches.com and pick it all up. And what's the name of the new album again?
The new album is called Undesirables and Anarchists. I should have played you a song from Undesirables and Anarchists, but because it's a rocking album. Like I'm just playing it. It's a rocking album, full of energy and joy. And of course, pretty timely too, because look what our country is. When I wrote the song "All of My Friends," it contains the line, "All of my friends are undesirables and anarchists." Little did I know that that would become newsworthy. But it's just good humor,
Kind of funny how that can end up in life, though. You write something down and it ends up popping up. Like you're talking about on the news and stuff like that. It's crazy how that happens. But I do want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
And stick with me for a minute. everybody that's been with me here in the chat and listening later online, thank you for stopping by. And as always, stop waiting for life to happen and make it happen. And I will talk to you guys next time.